What is up, YouTube? So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the most important formulas, everything you need to know, all the math that you need to know to make money sports betting. But this video is geared at non-math people. So a couple things I want to make really clear at the start of the video is you do not need a college degree, a math degree. You don't need to be an expert in mathematics to make money off the books. I mean, there are people who are security guards or previously were security guards who are now making tens of thousands of dollars sports betting. There is so much opportunity. The betting market is so fragmented, so inefficient. Anybody can make money sports betting if they put in the work to learn these strategies and formulas. So don't feel threatened if you don't have a background in math or statistics, because you can still do this. But the second thing I wanted to mention is it is really important, if you are sports betting, you're not a math person, it is really important to watch this video and try to understand things, right? I mean, every sports bettor, I don't know a single guy or girl who bets on sports and doesn't watch sports. So just watching sports, knowing ball, that's not what's gonna make you money off the sports books long term. You need to understand the strategies, the formulas, the data component. So that's really the purpose of this video, is to bridge the gap, kind of break down the important sports betting formulas in a very simple way that anybody can understand. And that's what I hope to do. So if you enjoy this type of content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment. Also, let me know other video ideas. It's almost NFL season, and I'm really excited to do sports betting content all season long. So if you have video ideas, anything like that, as well as questions, comment them below and I'll be happy to answer. So the first and most important formula in sports betting, you need to know it, and I'm gonna dumb it down, make sure everyone can understand it, is expected value. The core of profitable sports betting is finding positive expected value, positive ROI bets. There's two types of bets. It was the same thing when I was a trader, a quant trader on Wall Street. All you do as a quant trader is you figure out the expected value of every trade. You take the plus EV trades, the positive ROI trades, and you do not take the negative ROI, the negative EV trades. So this is the core of profitable sports betting, is if you are placing positive EV bets, you're gonna win long term. So that may be a little confusing. You know, how do I know if a bet is positive EV or negative EV? So let me give you a simple example. Is, let's say we're betting on the coin flip of the Super Bowl, right? And you know the coin, this maybe isn't a good example because the coin for the Super Bowl isn't weighted, but let's say you're betting with a friend and the coin, you know for a fact, is 55% to show up on heads. So the coin is 55% to land on heads, 45% to land on tails. So you're flipping this coin with a friend for $100. You're betting 100 to win 100. You can pick heads or tails. Obviously, you may say, Alex, the obvious answer is I'm gonna pick heads, right? If the coin is weighted, more likely 55% to show up on heads, I wanna bet on heads, right? That would be the positive expected value bet, and that's completely correct. But you can actually make this a little more mathematical. Is, let's say we're flipping a coin with a friend for $100. The coin is 55% to show up on heads, so it's more likely to show up on heads. You may lose a few times in a row, right? That coin can still show up on tails 3 times in a row, but you know over the course of the long run, betting on heads, that's the more likely outcome, that you are going to make money. So what's the expected value of each $100 bet? Well, it's pretty simple. So 55% of the time, you're gonna make $100, the coin is gonna show up on heads. The other 45% of the time, the coin's gonna show up on tails, and you're gonna lose $100. So what you can do is set up a little expected value equation, which is really simple, which is simply 55% of the time, you're gonna win $100, 45% of the time, you lose $100. And if you work out the math, you'll see that the expected value of every $100 bet of every coin flip is $10. So in other words, your edge or your profit margin is 10%. So this is a positive expected value bet that long term, you're gonna make a lot of money playing. And granted, nobody knows the future, right? We could flip that coin 3 times and it shows up on tails twice. And you may be thinking, wow, I lost $100 betting on heads, but that was the more likely outcome, which is true. And that's the thing in sports betting, right? Is nobody knows the future. There's probability. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So over the course of the long run, however, as your sample size gets bigger of coin flips, if that coin truly is 55% to show up on heads, you know over the course of the long run, even if you have some losing streaks, whatever, you are going to make a ton of money because for every, 1,000 coin flips, you're going to win about 550, only losing 450, and you're going to make a ton of money. So that is expected value with an example in a coin flip, but I think the analogy is pretty good when you're thinking about sports betting as well. So understanding expected value intuitively probably makes sense. If a coin is favored to show up on heads, you're betting for $100, you should probably bet on heads. But how does this relate to sports betting? And this brings us to our second formula, which is super, super important. It's the core of profitable plus EV sports betting, and it's called no-vig odds. So basically, every bet has a price that's fair, right? If the Eagles are playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year, I'm not going to say last year because we all know the Eagles won, but if the Eagles are playing the Chiefs, I think we all agree it would be at least a somewhat competitive game. If you could get the Chiefs at, plus 1,000 odds, or the Eagles at plus 1,000 odds, betting 100 to profit 1,000, that would probably be a good bet. It's almost never the case that an NFL team is a plus 1,000 underdog. Nobody knows the future. So the question is, how do you know if the bet you're taking at the price you're taking, the specific odds you're taking, is a profitable bet? And that basically boils down to no-vig odds. So I'll give you an example of a bet that I just locked in, which was a UFC fight to go the distance, the Rodriguez fight. I bet this at minus 160 odds. I thought that this was a positive EV, a mathematically profitable bet, which basically means I thought I was getting better odds than the true price should be, right? If I'm getting minus 160, then I think the true price should be maybe minus 170, minus 200. I'm getting better value than what I believe the odds should be priced at. It's very similar to being a trader. When I was a quantitative trader on Wall Street, if there's a stock that I think is worth $1, right? I want to buy it at 95 cents. I want to buy it below what I believe the fair value of the stock is. So the question is, how do you determine fair odds? How do you determine what the price should be set at? And the great thing about being a sports bettor is there are hundreds of sports books that set prices for every UFC fight, MLB game, NBA game, NFL game. So you have hundreds of data points, hundreds of different betting markets, and from those different betting markets, you can kind of discern what is fair value and when is a sports book messing up. So I'll give you a simple example. As I locked in this play at minus 160 odds off of OddsJam, just from the positive EV tool on OddsJam, which basically scans the tens of thousands of odds on every single sports book and just points out line discrepancies and mathematically profitable bets. So I bet this at minus 160, but why do I think it's a plus EV or a profitable bet? And what you can do is basically turn to all the other sports books setting odds. So I'll give you a simple example. Is you can see no-vig, which is a peer-to-peer betting exchange. It's known for being a pretty sharp book. Their market was minus 187 on yes. I'm getting minus 160. No-vig is pricing this at minus 187, so I'm obviously getting a better line, better value. But the question is, minus 160 versus minus 155, how big does the difference have to be? And that's where no-vig odds comes into play. This is the way all of the financial industry works. This is the way it works as a trader, right? When I was a trader on Wall Street, if somebody wanted to buy something from me, let's say a stock, I think the stock is worth $1. What I tell them is, hey, I'm a 90-cent bid, 110 offer. In other words, I'll buy this stock for 90 cents or I'll sell it for 110 because I think the stock is worth $1. So I'm baking in a 10-cent profit margin. I think the stock is worth $1, so I'll sell it at 110. So I get a 10-cent profit on every single trade I make, assuming my value is correct, my fair value of $1 is correct. And this is the exact same way that sports books work. They're market makers. They offer, the possibility to bet on anything. You can bet on the over, the under, go the distance, not go the distance. So basically, in this example, No-vig has a 30-cent spread baked into their market. Minus 187 on the fight to go the distance, plus 157 on the fight to not go the distance. So what you want to do is remove that spread. You want to find the midpoint. No-vig has a 30-cent spread, 30 cents of juice baked into their market. So what you want to do is just remove it. So what is the midpoint of 187 and 157? It's 172, right? So basically what No-vig is saying through their market, through their odds, the same way a stockbroker who says 90-cent bid, 110 offer is telling you that, hey, this stock, I think it's worth $1. You just find the midpoint of the market. It's the same thing in sports betting. No-vig is saying minus 187, go the distance, plus 157, not go the distance. You find the midpoint, minus 172, yes, plus 172, no. So basically 172, according to this one specific sports book, but No-vig is known to be a pretty sharp book. So the midpoint of their market is minus 172 plus 172. So basically what that means is, according to No-vig, if I could get the fight to not go the distance above plus 172 odds at better value than plus 172 odds, then my bet would be plus EV or profitable. So if I could get this fight to not go the distance at plus 200, plus 300, that would be a great bet. But if I can get better than minus 172 odds on the yes, which I'm getting, right? On flip, I'm getting minus 160. That's better. That's a better price than minus 172. Then my bet on the yes is plus EV, right? If the fair line is minus 172, you should have to bet 172 to win 100. And on flip, I only have to bet 160 to win 100. Then my bet is profitable. If I could get minus 150, the edge would be higher. It would be an even more profitable bet. So basically, as a sports bettor, you want to de-vig the markets. You want to take sportsbooks markets, find the midpoint, remove the vig. De-vigging is another way of saying removing the juice, removing the spread. That leads you to fair value. So according to No-vig, fair value is minus 172. On flip, I'm getting minus 160. So this bet is profitable or positive EV. So if you look at BetOnline as another data point, BetOnline is known to be a pretty sharp book. Their market is minus 190, yes, plus 155, no. So once again, if you de-vig this market, if you find the midpoint, it's minus 172.5. On flip, we're getting minus 160, which is better odds, a better price than the true line according to BetOnline, a very sharp book. So once again, according to BetOnline's market, as well as No-vig, this bet, once again on flip, is plus EV, a mathematically profitable bet. So all of sports betting, all of positive EV, profitable sports betting, relates to finding bets where you are getting better odds than what the true price should be. That's all that profitable sports betting is. And it's the same thing as the coin flip. You shouldn't be getting 100 to win 100 if the coin is 55% to show up on heads, right? We're getting a positive expected value bet. So whenever I'm finding bets with OddsJam, I'm checking all of the sharp sports books like Pinnacle, BetOnline, No-vig, Circa. I'm finding their No-vig odds. OddsJam obviously does this automatically. It's baked into the software. But I'm finding bets where I'm getting odds on a sports book like Flip, where the odds I'm getting are better than they should be priced at. The sportsbook is making a mistake. Obviously, most bets aren't positive EV. 97% of sports bettors lose money long term. So as a sports bettor, We're looking for the needle in the haystack. We're looking for the few rare opportunities where a sportsbook is slipping up and offering too much value, which in this case was Fliff offering this line at -160. It ended up cashing. I had it in a parlay as well, but that's kind of how no-vig odds works. And I tried to dumb it down to the best of my ability. Obviously, if you have questions about no-vig odds, profitable sports betting, anything in this video, comment your questions below and I'll be happy to answer. So next we have parlays. How does profitable parlay betting work? And you'll see a ton of content online. You shouldn't bet parlays. They're so unprofitable. They're so bad. And that's not true. I mean, it is kind of true. You got to remember, 97% of sports bettors lose money long term, right? So if you lose money on straight bets, you're definitely going to lose money on parlays long term. But you can see last year, I used a verified bet tracker called Pickett Sports. I made over $160,000 betting on parlays. It's absolutely categorically false that you cannot make money on parlays. People just don't understand the math. So a parlay is just a combination of bets. If every bet in your parlay is positive EV, then your parlay is going to be plus EV. So I'll give you a simple example. Let's say every bet you place has a 3% ROI. Okay, 3% ROI, that's what you're making on your straight bets. If you solely start to run 3-leg parlays, your ROI on your 3-leg parlays is going to be 3% times 3, 9%. Every leg has a 3% profit margin. You have 3 legs in your parlay, so 9% profit margin. So your profit margin on 3-leg parlays, assuming your straight bets, the plays you're including in your parlay have a 3% edge, your parlay profit margin is going to be 9%. So long story short, parlay betting, it's not that complicated, right? If your straight bets are plus EV or profitable, then your parlays are going to be profitable. If you have a 2% edge, then on 2-leg parlays, you'll have a 4% edge. However, you have to remember the reason most people say parlays are so bad, they're awful, is most sports bettors are unprofitable. Most sports bettors have roughly a negative 5 to 6% ROI. So if you have a negative 5% ROI for a 2-leg parlay, you're stacking negative 5% on each leg. For a 2-leg parlay, your ROI is going to be negative 10%. And that's why most beginner sports bettors, as well as obviously unprofitable sports bettors, should not be betting on parlays, because if you're not profitable, your negative edge just continues to compound with each leg that you add into your parlay. So long story short, you can make money on parlays. Everything just boils down to the edge or the profit margin expected value of the straight bets that you're including in the parlay. So the next important formula for sports bettors to understand is odds conversion. And the reason this is important is a lot of the new books that have started to launch put their odds in a different format. So it's very confusing, right? Because if you go to one sports book, you may see -200. If you go to another sports book, you may see 1.33x. And it gets confusing because as you're trying to find value, compare these sports books to one another, if they have different odds formats, obviously that becomes more complicated. So basically, the main format that a lot of books have started to use, probably because it's confusing and they know if they confuse sports bettors, they'll make more money. But the main odds format that new books have started to use is called payout format or decimal odds. They're the same thing. So I'll give you an example. Is on Parlay Play, they had Kucherov over 1.5. They had his line at a 1.66x payout. So what does that mean, right? What does that mean? We're used to seeing plus 100, minus 200. What is 1.66x? Does that mean plus 166? No, it doesn't. 1.66x means if you put down 100, you're gonna win 166 if you win. So you're betting 100 to win 66 in profit. You have to remove your stake. So you're betting 100 to win 66 in profit, which you can use an odds converter calculator, is the same as minus 151 odds. So then what you can do is, after converting payout or decimal odds to American odds, is you can compare that line to other sports books, normal sports books, you know, that put their odds in American odds, and you'll see, hey, Pinnacle, which is known to be a really sharp sports book, known for having really accurate lines, they have this line at -190. So this promo on Parlay Play, which is the book that had Kucherov's over at a 1.66x payout, yeah, getting this at a 1.66x payout, in other words, -151 odds, is pretty dang good, considering the sharpest sportsbook out there has this priced at -190. So again, you can use an odds converter calculator, but that's kind of an understanding of how American odds and decimal odds or payout format relate to one another, and I think that's important because a lot of books have started to launch and they only use payout format. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. But regardless, I mean, there's so many formulas I could go through in this video, but I'm gonna end the video here. We went through a bunch: expected value, no-vig odds, parlay math. Those are by far the most important formulas in sports betting. I tried to explain them in non-math terms. So I hope you found this video useful, helpful, whatever. And if you enjoyed this type of content, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It really means a lot to me. And let me know other video ideas too. I mean, I'm gonna be grinding all of football season, making content. So let me know what else you wanna see. I'm happy to do it. And thanks so much for your time, guys.